letting you know you're not alone, letting you know.
This week, I'm going to show you how to do a watercolor finish because DIY paint is so pigmented, it can be watered down 10 to 1. Even if you're blending challenged like I am, this process is surprisingly easy to do.
Wonder what we all are thinking.
Everything about this story affects the decisions that I make on a daily basis. I was looking at that piece of furniture back there. What story am I going to tell with this piece of furniture? Why don't you tell the story of how you started DIY paint? Oh, no, I don't want to tell that story. That story's dangerous. That story is full of drama, controversy. How do I tell it? It's long, it's not pretty. Today's the day to tell the story, so I'm gonna tell it, but I'm sweating right now. I'm just gonna wing it like I do a lot of things. Just like you need thick white paper with watercolor art, I wanted to create a white base coat with DIY paint so that the colors could run together and be watered down and blend together. DIY paint is super thick and super pigmented, so I'm using the Mr. Spray bottle from the Turquoise Iris. This helps me get even brush strokes. It helps the paint to move across the surface and go on evenly. In most cases, you can paint right over the surface without sanding or priming. I did get some bleed through because of the dark stain, but I wasn't worried about it because I knew I was going to blend several colors. To set your soul straight. If you're not familiar with bleed through, it's when the wood tannins or a dark stain will seep through the paint and look like a water stain. If you end up with a look like this and you want to prevent it, the best thing to do is stop and prime with the Zinsser shellac. And if your heart can receive it, it's a sign. I knew in my heart that I was meant to have a store, but I was broke, just struggling big time. There would be days where there was $5 in the cash register and I didn't know how to feed myself and my dog. I would find things that were free on the side of the road or free on Craigslist. And then I would go to Home Depot and I would get the gallon size of paint that people had returned because it was the wrong color. I would paint it and I would sell it. That was a big chunk of how I made my money. Then one day this lady walks into my store and she starts telling me about this paint and how it's going to sweep across the nation and that people were going to come from miles around to buy it. How? Like what? Paint is paint. And then I find out that it's not a gallon of paint, but a quart of paint. A quart of paint. This is a quart right here. It's 32 ounces. She's saying that it's going to cost $40 for this amount right here when I had been paying $5 for a gallon. So I'm just nodding and smiling. There's no way that I am going to pay that much money for a quart of paint. That's the most ridiculous idea that I have ever heard. Nobody's going to buy that paint. That's absurd. Seriously, how good can this paint be? A few weeks later, she shows up at my store and she's got all of this paint in her hands. Debbie, I have all these samples for you. I want you to try these. I think that you could sell this in your store. It came from the UK. It's gonna sweep across the country. I don't need you to pay for it. Just see what you think. You could really sell a lot of this paint in your shop. Okay, sure. I'll take your free paint. I'll take any free paint. I cannot have this take up valuable space on my sales floor. Nobody's gonna buy it. You are selling, what was that story about the emperor who wears no clothes? I used a piece of chalk to create an outline for where I wanted my different colors to blend together. I'm starting to lose my mind. Then I used artist brushes from the Turquoise Iris to create my borders and fill in the color. You're like a bad addiction, causing friction, creeping into my peace of mind. You're like a I'm using blue iris and a very wet brush to fill in the bottom areas of the dresser. I've gotta stop it before you start. Whoa, oh, oh, whoa, oh, oh, whoa, oh, oh. wow, this is really different. This is really good. Whoa, this covers way better. This actually sticks to the furniture. I don't have to sand it. I don't have to prime it. This looks better than anything I've ever painted before. This makes me look like I'm actually good at painting furniture. I always thought I was just a crappy painter. I was getting by selling furniture, and thank God people were buying it, but I was never happy with how my furniture looked. I never liked painting. I did it to pay the rent. It looked good. It took me half the amount of time, and I had fun. I had never had fun painting furniture before. I can't afford this paint, but I have to have it. I don't want to go back to painting furniture with that crap paint. So I will tell the lady that yes, I'm gonna sell the paint in my shop. I will just use it to paint my furniture. And who cares if anyone comes in to buy it?
Wake up and listen to my anthem. Tune out the noises from my past and look up, remember where my help comes from.
I'm filling in with mermaid tail, blending the colors together at the border and following my chalk lines.
Take time, remember what it means to love. Yeah. Here's another chance to see the change we need.
I'm using the continuous mister again from the turquoise iris, so the colors will blend and run together like watercolor art. Many artists can blend with their brushes. I have a hard time getting a really soft look, so this is my solution or a way of cheating, depending on how you look at it.
I can feel it, there's something in the water. Anything is possible. Come on and move like the power of...
Have the dresser lying on its back so I can apply a lot of water and it can puddle up instead of dripping down the side of the furniture. Hey, how did you like the paint? I love it. Yes, I want to do it. Please, please let me. How do I get the paint in my store? She tells me I would have to buy $2,000 worth of paint, and I'm like, oh, can't do that. So we struck up a deal, and she put the paint in consignment in my store. She brings this whole like truckload full of all these colors and all this paint. I can't have this paint take up room in my store. I need all the room I can get in my store to sell my furniture and all the other things that I'm selling. So I had this little barn in the yard. I decide that I'm just going to put all the paint in the shed. If anyone came in to buy it, then I would send them out to the shed, but no one was coming to buy it because $40 for 32 ounces of paint is ridiculous, even if it is the best paint that I'd ever used. People came in and they started asking for the paint, and then I'm just like waiting for them to see the price and just walk away. They started buying it, and people started calling, "Do you have the paint?" "Yes, I do." And then the phone rings, and it's this woman that I'd never heard of before. "Debbie, we are taking over the big paint brand. If you want to continue to sell the paint in your shop, we're going to send you a contract that you need to sign. We need you to sign it before you can sell any more paint in your shop." What? Who are you? Okay, thank you very much. And then I called the other lady. What happened? Why do I have to sign this contract? And what's going on? The lady who brought the paint said they fired me. Don't sign the contract. I have another paint that's even better. Oh no. There's no way that there's another paint that's better than this paint. I gotta have my paint. I need it. My furniture has been selling. I've been able to paint more furniture faster than I've ever been able to paint before. People are buying it. People are buying the paint. I gotta have paint for my store now.
I was taken by the moon, looking down on everything I never knew.
So even though the paint has dried, you can reactivate it with water. So I'm going in with the artist brush and the mister to create more blending and encourage the colors to run together. Then I added mint chip as I worked my way up the dresser, continuing to follow the chalk lines.
If you never come around, how we ever gonna be? If you're always on the ground, then you're never gonna see what falling feels like.
I used the force of the water from the mister bottle to get the paint to move around and create new patterns, kind of like a controlled paint pour.
Feels like falling feels. Falling feels like.
Okay, I will wait. There was no way I could sign that contract anyway. There was just no way. I was just hoping and praying that the lady number one had a better paint like she said she did. Here she comes, and she's got this other kind of paint. And it has clay in it. There was chalk in the first paint. Here is this new paint. It's got clay in it. It's really good. It's even better. God, please let this be good paint. Mostly I just wanted it to use for myself. I still wasn't convinced that it was important to sell it. It smells like dirt. Wow, it's thick. It's pigmented, and I start painting with it. This is good. This doesn't have any chemicals in it. This goes on in one coat. Yes, okay, I like this paint even better. I found out that I still couldn't afford the $2,000 to sell paint number 2 in my shop. What can I do? I need to get creative here. And I made a video about this amazing clay paint and how good it was. And I showed everyone how to use it, and I showed everyone how you can distress it with water, and how it's highly pigmented, and how you don't have to sand or prime, and all of the things. I posted it to Facebook, and it went viral.
Just watch me now. Just watch me. Just watch me now. Just watch me. Just watch me now. Just watch me.
It's important to wait for one side to completely dry before flipping it over to work on the next side, or you will get a lot of drips.
I believe I'm a man with a heart that's a little offbeat.
I used so much water that I had to wait for the paint to dry overnight before flipping it to the next side. Then I decided to experiment by tipping the dresser back and forth to see if I could encourage the paint to move around.
With all the false prophets surrounding me, so I see, yeah. You gotta love her like a religion. You gotta tell her how you've been sinning.
I think the key to getting a really beautiful blended look is creating soft lines. So getting the paint to move around on its own creates that beautiful soft blended look that I have not been able to achieve yet with a brush, but I'm working on it.
I believe every day I'm a burden and I gotta behave. 'Cause your love is a sermon that I gotta start learning by the end of the day. Now you see I don't mean to be a storm.
Not viral like millions of views viral, but hundreds of shares and comments galore. And then I got to the point where I could afford to buy my own paint because the paint was selling like crazy. Having a store is so hard. There would be some days where I would make $50 all day in my store. But when I would make videos and sell the paint on my website, I would make $1,000 in one day. So I was making videos, shipping out the paint, making videos, shipping out the paint. Then all of a sudden my sales came to a drastic stop. Selling, and then nothing. Like, well, maybe it's the time of the year. I don't know. What is going on?
How did I lose all my remnants of self-control? You made me somebody that I don't even know. I'm chasing your shadows, and I know that that you're up to no good. I'm too close to fight, yeah. You're telling me it's hell, but you can only blame yourself.
If I were to do this project over again, I would have done the top first. Because it didn't have a lip on it, it was hard to control all of the paint from dripping down the sides.
Better shut your mouth.
Did have to go back and fix one of the sides that got too many drips from the top, but it was really easy to do because I just reactivated it again with water and blended it.
You know what happened. The truth is, you're wounded, and I know your reasons why. You're jaded, and I hate it, the madness in your mind.
How is it that I made thousands of dollars in sales every single month, and then all of a sudden my sales are down to $100 a month? What happened? And that went on for 3 months. Okay, you got to do something different. I would teach furniture painting classes, and I would get about 8 women to come, and then at the end of every class, I would sell an average of $300 worth of paint. Well, I'm just going to go back to teaching classes. I'll continue to make my videos, and at least I know I can make $300 if I teach a class. When the class was over, everybody was happy. I sold 1 jar. What? Why is nobody buying paint? What is going on? And then my sales assistant came up to me, Debi. I overheard the women talking after class that everybody was getting ready to buy paint, and then 2 of the women in the class said, you can get a better deal on the internet. You can get free shipping and you can get this free brush. We are not going to buy the paint here. We're going to buy it on the internet. What? That's against the rules. You're not supposed to offer a better deal online because all of the people who are retailing this paint were supposed to have a level playing field.
It's hard enough to breathe when I don't have smoke caught in the lungs, you see.
Using a tiny fan brush, I added Golden Ticket and Kissing Booth to the diluted paint.
Should we tell someone about the clouds above asleep? You caught me at a bad time, a little too much to drink. I'm a little top heavy, but a little too sober to think.
After this, I decided to see what would happen if I tried to use the hairdryer to dry the paint. The heat from the hairdryer created some very cool patterns, but be careful with the hairdryer because it can completely change the look. My business continued to suffer. It got to the point where my mom said to me, Debi, you can only afford to pay the rent either at your store or at your house, but you don't have enough money to pay the rent for both. I was so tired of struggling with that store. My YouTube channel was beginning to grow. The money that I was making on YouTube was paying for my cell phone bill. I was almost 50 years old and I made the decision to move back in with my mom and dad. Okay, there must be better paint to sell out there. By this time there were several brands of paint, and maybe there's another company out there that has better rules. And I ordered all these samples of all these different paints. This is not as good. There's no other paint that I like as much as the paint that I was selling. And so I held on because I loved the paint so much. I'm holding on and I'm holding on and I'm hoping that something will change. I just wanted it to go back to how it was. And then the paint that I loved changed. Sometimes doors slam shut so tight that you find the courage to do things that you wouldn't otherwise do if you didn't have any other options.
Shadows in the sky, footsteps in the night behind me.
I had ordered 4 cans of paint because my sales were so ridiculously slow again. And I crack open one of the cans of paint, and it is not the paint. It looks different, it smells different. And I went outside and I started painting with it. I call up my distributor. What happened to the paint? Oh yeah, that's the new formula. New formula? I didn't know there was a new formula. That was it. I got no reason to stay. I'm done. What am I gonna do? There's no other paint like this. I'm just gonna have to find the next best thing and move on. I started ordering more samples, and there was a company that offered to make a paint with my name on it, and they were a very small company, and so they were hoping, because of my YouTube channel, that I would help their brand grow, and they had their brand and I had my brand. They were both the same formula of paint with 2 different labels. I agreed to sell that paint. I sold that paint for a whole year. And again, I ran into similar problems. I was persuading and recruiting retailers to sell my brand of paint, and I was telling them this brand of paint is going to be retailer friendly, because I had struggled so much and had been through so much financial hardship, and that's what I promised to the people that I recruited. So again, it went back to the same conflict about business decisions and what is retailer friendly and what isn't. When the contract ended after a year, the company that I had signed up with didn't renew my contract because I was very verbal about the things that I didn't agree with that were not retailer friendly. They came up with a new label of paint that looked almost exactly like my label of paint. I had recruited 100 retailers, and so they wanted to keep all of the business that I had brought into the company.
Drinking it in while I'm drifting away, breathing you out of my lungs.
I'm just using a very light grit sandpaper to reveal some of the dark wood underneath. DIY paint is so soft that it comes off in a very light powder.
But you're gone, gone, gone. Anywhere I go, I swear I can feel you.
My mom was also very sick. My mom had cancer. She was in her last year of life. When you are losing someone that you love, all of these other crazy, dramatic business things, they just seem about this big to you. I think I had about 2 weeks warning that this was gonna happen. I was telling one of my retailers on the phone, they're not gonna renew my contract. I have no paint to sell. What am I gonna do? I have to start over. Debbie, I know this guy. He is all about natural products, and he can make you that paint that you used to sell that you love. I can put you in touch with him. Okay, but I can't afford to start a paint company. I can't, I'm sleeping in a sleeping bag. Why don't you just talk to him? You got nothing to lose. And so I called this guy up. I gave him all the numbers and all the sales reports, and could he make the clay paint for me? He said, Debbie, I could make you any kind of paint that you want. Why do you want to sell this paint with the clay in it? That's great paint, but it's really expensive to make. There's very little profit in it. You're not going to make money on that paint. And I could offer you this formula and you could make some real money on it and it's still a really good paint. Or I could offer you this formula and you could actually make a profit on it and it's really good paint. And he said, in order for you to make a profit on the clay-based paint, you would have to sell it for $45 a quart.
Call anytime you need me and I'm gonna find you.
The retailer who put me in touch with our new manufacturer and saved DIY paint has a business called White Swan, which also happens to be the name of our most popular color.
I'm right behind you.
Last thing to do is apply the clear wax, which will dramatically deepen the color. Wait for it to dry, let it even out, and then buff with the soft cloth.
But you gotta make up your mind, and don't you let another day pass you by.
The most expensive paint was $39 a quart. How can I compete if I'm selling it for $45 a quart? All of these retailers have put their trust in me. It has to be the same price that I'm already selling it at. And I don't care if it takes me a while to make money. I'm used to not making money. I want to sell a paint that I believe in. And I told all of my retailers, my contract is ending, but I have this paint right here. And I just told them why I loved it. I told them about the clay and all the things that it does and why it's different than every other paint. I don't know, I think I lost like 15 to 20% of my existing retailers. They decided to stay with the other company, and I kept the other ones. And I got new ones. This time, I was the one who got to create the policies, but I also had all of the responsibility.
I'd be lying if I said it was easy. This path I'm walking on.
DIY Paint is retailer friendly. We offer territories and a level playing field. And our mission is to help small businesses find success.
I'm spending money like I just got paid. $100 bills, tell them keep the change. Come on.
To find a DIY paint retailer in your area or to sell DIY paint in your store, click the link below. Thanks for watching.
And if you're wondering why I move the way I do, I just feel so good.